coming up on this episode of the Spiro Podcast.
So I think that's kind of unique in our industry, is that you can partner with those other players in the industry that are not competing against you, and you guys can actually help each other.
Welcome to the Spiro Podcast, managing your real estate photography and videography business, with your hosts, Todd Kivimaki and Craig Magrum.
Hi, and welcome to the Spiro Podcast, managing your real estate, photography, and videography business. Spiro is a software platform. If you're new to the podcast, it's a software platform designed to really help you manage your day-to-day real estate media business and ultimately to help you scale as well. We'd like to see you grow and really do well in this industry. I'm Craig Magrum, host of the podcast. Spit it out. I am a professional communicator, right? With the podcast. For those of you that have seen this before, welcome back to another week. Glad to have you and really appreciate the time that you take out each and every week to watch and or listen during your work week. We're humbled by that and just grateful for the opportunity to speak into your life and your business. All right. Well, this week, a little bit different. Todd is out on vacation for some much needed R&R. And so I am running this without him, but no stranger to the podcast, our guest and familiar face, Mr. Steve Musser, who is the Director of Sales and Marketing for Wow Video Tours, which is our real estate media business on the other side of things from Spiro. So Steve, welcome. Glad to have you join me here this week.
Yeah, Craig, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to keep this fairly focused, Steve, and we're just going to dive right into things. Normally we do some Spiro updates, but with Todd being out, we're going to forego that this week and just dive right into really ultimately what is a listener question that came in. Nick and I have been talking back and forth quite a bit on Facebook, and he's been picking my brain on some things. And he asked a really good question that we really haven't discussed lately in depth, and that's the subject of sales and business development. And with Steve being our director of sales and marketing, I thought this would be a great week to have him on and share some of his insights and experience. Particularly, Steve, in the area of larger markets, large metro areas, and somebody trying to get into this industry. So that's kind of what I'd like to pick on your brain on this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to dig into it.
Yeah. So Nick was sharing with me, he's trying to get legs under him and start to build, a clientele, things like that. And there's a lot to consider when you're talking about the area of sales and business development. So the first thing that came to mind as I was thinking about, the podcast this morning is we're recording, Steve, is there's so many different personalities and ways of doing sales, it seems like, or things that you hear. But is there really one main way to develop sales, or is there different ways that you can do it? I know that's a really broad question, but we'll start broad and kind of narrow down.
So I would say yes and no. So there's a million different ways that you can structure your sales team, or if it's just you as a solopreneur, there's different ways you can approach that sales side of things. The one thing that is standard across the board is just consistency. So you have to have that consistency in your approach and your tracking and your follow-ups, everything else to make sure that the sales program is working, whether it's you or a team or however you have that structured. But there are a million different ways to get that consistency done.
Right. Yeah. And we'll dive more into that. So when you say consistency, what does that exactly look like? How do you stay consistent in this field? And what does that even look like or mean to somebody that's maybe new to sales and business development?
Yeah. So when I say consistency, what I'm basically referring to is the fact that, and Craig, you know this more than anybody, but walking into an office and, maybe dropping off treats or, meeting some of the team there at an office or doing a cold call or whatever the case might be on your actions, bottom line is typically one time is not going to change the trajectory of your business. It's not going to win possibly even a client out of that. Sometimes it takes, several visits, several calls, several follow-ups. I mean, we've had a lot of relationships that we built that took years to kind of get across that finish line and have a good relationship that we're working together to help their business. So that is the key, in the consistency is just don't get so overwhelmed. Don't expect instant results on any of your actions. It's definitely a long game, but everything that you're doing today is preparing that groundwork or that foundation for your sales program moving forward. And if you stay consistent in it, you will see results. You just have to kind of keep plugging away and making sure that your time's spent, the best way possible, but you will get those results over time.
Yeah. I think that can be the frustrating part, is when you're trying to get an effort going, especially say in a larger market, like a Dallas or one of our markets, Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati. If you're new and there's already, especially if there's established competition, other people in that same space, it's not going to be easy because a lot of those realtors already have established relationships with other photographers. So kind of the frustration for the new person getting into it is if they're not getting traction right away, how long can they survive trying to get this business going with not a lot of results? So consistency definitely important. But do you have any advice maybe on how somebody can hang in there when it does take some time to get an effort going?
Yeah. So I understand that too. I mean, as you're growing your business, you need to see results in order to keep revenue coming into your company and then keep that consistency going to continue to see results long term. So there are a few things that I always say to lead off with that are kind of like the basics. And from that, you can kind of determine what the low hanging fruit is in that market. And so the first thing that I always say, regardless of the size of your market, is get the data. If you can get any kind of data on the market, typically, if you have any connections in the community with, realtors or the board or whatever the case is, try to get a agent ranking report. And that will tell you a little bit about what is happening out in the market. Who are the people that are doing the most business out there in that specific market? Are they doing mainly listings? Are they doing buyer transactions? Things along those lines. Because I think that is, as a small business and trying to get results as quickly as possible, that's something that you want to turn your attention to, because without that data, you don't know if you're spending your time in a way that is the most efficient. So having that data and being able to go down the list and say, hey, I've been calling this person for 6 months and I haven't been able to connect yet. And then you find out that they do 2 listings a year, or maybe not even that, then, that's probably not your target client. You're looking for somebody with a little bit more volume. So I think if you start with the data and kind of get a good understanding of where the market is, who are the people that are doing, and not necessarily even the most transactions, but doing enough transactions that you can, kind of partner up with them and help their business grow. And they're going to help you in the long run as well. So start there, try to get as much data as possible. And I think that gives you a good framework on making sure that your time spent well on whatever task that you're completing.
So let's play off that a little bit. Okay. So say we identify the top 5 agents in the market, and we really want to try and establish some sort of relationship with them and maybe have them try us. We offer them a free shoot or something like that. How much does personality go into trying to establish that initial relationship with somebody? Steve, you've done sales. I've done sales. We've got Chris that takes care of our Columbus market, Joy there in Charlotte, and then Pam for Dayton and Cincinnati. And then we got Carter with Fort Wayne. You've got a mix of personalities here that you're leading as our director of marketing and sales. How much does personality go into trying to make that first contact with a top agent in a market?
Yeah, Yeah, and honestly, it's not even the top agents; it's all agents. Depending
Well,
on
yeah.
when you're making those outreaches. But yeah, personality plays a big part of it because everybody has their strengths, everybody has their comfort zone on what they're most comfortable with and what they excel with. And our sales team's a good example of that. Joy is the event master as far as
She's queen. She's queen of event planning. Absolutely.
she's out there holding events, at least one a week, if not
Yeah.
multiple, and she's coordinating and so, she plays to her strengths in that way to where she has those connections. She has other partners in the market that she connects with and kind of helps put everything together.
Let me key off on that real quick. So
Yeah, absolutely.
you just said other partners. What does that look like? So say, John in Gainesville, Florida, I'm just making something up. He's started to get to know some of the other industry players. What does that look like, inviting other partners into an event that you might
Yeah.
host for realtors?
Yeah, our industry is kind of unique in that way to where there is, our core client is the realtor and brokerage. And so around that realtor and brokerage, there are, you know, dozens of other partners that they're working with day in, day out on all their transactions. And it gives us a unique opportunity to partner up with them. So that could be insurance agents, that could be mortgage brokers, that could be title departments, anything along those lines. We're targeting the same end user. We're targeting that realtor, and our goals are the same. We want to partner with them and offer what our service is to help them grow their business, and we grow together on that side of things. So
Right.
I think that's kind of unique in our industry, is that you can partner with those other players in the industry that are not competing against you, and you guys can actually help each other. And we do that a lot. Joy's a great example of that. She partners with those mortgage brokers and title title agencies and everything else, to where they can pull their resources and their efforts and time together to host an event, or to maybe have a promotion that goes out to agents. And then that way you're getting more bang for your buck on that side of things, both on the time invested, because you should be able to split some of that time to coordinate some of those efforts, and then also resources. In Joy's example, she holds these events, and a lot of times they'll provide lunch or snacks, or different
Right.
different things available to the agents that are stopping in for that class. Another one that she does a lot is information. So she has any experts in the real estate industry or social media or anything along those lines, she'll reach out and try to partner with them, and everybody can promote their own business to the same agents, and it's a lot more cost effective and time effective on your calendar.
As I think about this, so in my market, I don't really have time to do events or plan events or those sorts of things, but I can see the value. And I've never thought about this by partnering with other established industry peoples. Say a mortgage broker, a title person, or an inspector that already is established. If they agree to do an event with you, that's kind of lending credibility to you as a new person in the media field for real
Yeah.
estate. And yeah, what a great
And it does
creative
go both
idea.
ways too. So they're kind of bringing their audience to you, and you're bringing
Yeah,
your audience to them, and it's a win-win across the board. There's no competition there. It's
right.
just collaboration, and you can get out there and really have some fun with it. We've done some. It doesn't even have to be an event. So I know a lot of times we say event and people kind of shy away because it seems like such a big ordeal to kind of plan an event. You can get there eventually. Joy's a perfect example of that, is that she has it so systemized that it's nothing to her to, hurry up and plan an event. But it doesn't all have to tie back to that. I mean, it could be even a webinar. It could be, partnering to sponsor a golf tournament or something along those lines. So you can pull your resources together to be able to do that, and then you're both bringing your audiences as well, and then
Right.
hopefully hitting even a larger audience, and everybody is better because of it.
So as I'm thinking through events and these other things that you just mentioned, golf tournaments or classes or webinars. I'm thinking about board events that you could potentially sponsor. So your local realtor board, I would say, if you're somebody new, become an affiliate member of your local board.
Absolutely.
And get involved with sponsoring the classes that they offer, which most of the time is just buying some breakfast items or something for the class or some snacks. They give you 5 minutes at the beginning of the class. You introduce yourself. Steve, the thing that we talk about a lot in helping in consulting with our clients is their face is their brand. Obviously, we want realtors to be on video. Well, wouldn't it be the same for us? Our face is our brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that kind of ties into a big term that you hear us say a lot within WOW is top of mind. So top of mind marketing. And this really all ties back to it. So the goal with everything that you do on the sales side is to be the first person they think of when they have a need for your service. So, that, like I said, it can be quick, it can be a long game. It just kind of depends on the situation, the agent, everything else. But whatever you can do to stay in front of that audience in the market, whether it is those board events, things along those lines. And the cool thing about it is as we build those relationships, a couple months ago, we got a call from the local board, and they just let us know that they had a lot of agents asking questions about AI. And they said, would you like to come in and talk about it? And that's not a presentation I've done before, but we utilize AI. We're a tech company. We're very familiar with it. And so put together a presentation to go out there and kind of address their basic, questions on AI and how to use it in real estate and everything else. And I didn't bring lunch. I didn't do anything. They just wanted the knowledge. And that is just a great feeling when you have that trust and that expert status in the market to where the board's actually reaching out to you saying, hey, we need this. We think you're the right person to do it. Can you come in and do this? And then you get to go in front of 30, 40 people and talk about it. And even though you're not talking about your business and your brand, you're actually building that expert credibility on the back end because They know who you are now. They know that you know what you're talking about, and they appreciate the knowledge on that side of things.
Yeah. And that all ties back into consistency. So to get that kind of invitation, obviously you have to be known in the market. And as somebody that's new, you're like, well, I'm not known, but that's where consistency drives into all of this. Become an affiliate member, show up at events. Initially, Todd and I have talked about this in the past. Initially, when you're getting your business off the ground, there is a grind. There's just always a grind portion of developing business, right? And it can be grueling. But if you stick it out and stay consistent and stay visible and, be in front of other people, they will get to know you, and people buy from people they know, like, and trust. We've heard that phrase a bazillion times, but trust has to come because you've had the consistency and the track record of being visible and proving good results with the few shoots that you do get initially.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, as you're starting your business, so one thing that you just want to keep in mind, or as you're maybe a solopreneur and starting to branch out into building a team or whatever the case is, when you're at that level, just kind of get over the fear of it, but understand that you're going to have to. It's going to be time, money, or both in order to bring in new clients. And so the nice thing with that is you could throw money at it. You could do marketing, you could do social media advertising, you could do, all various sponsorships, things along those lines, and spend the money to kind of build that brand behind your business and be the one that they know is an expert in the industry. So you can do money or time, some like what we were just talking about, going out and dropping off at offices or doing presentations, things along those lines, and sometimes it's a combination of time and money that would be required for that. But the nice thing is, believe it or not, as you grow and as you kind of develop these systems and get everything in place, then that time and money aspect almost starts to fade away a little bit. And I'm not saying it disappears, but with what we're talking about is we have people now reaching out to us, and saying, hey, we want to do this and we want you to be part of it. And now all of a sudden you look at that time and money aspect is a lot lower than it used to be in order to bring in new clients. So that consistency leads up to that. So that's the way to get to that level.
Right. A perfect example of this, Steve. Just last evening, I got a text from one of our longtime clients that I had initially started working with years ago, and she's like, "Hey, would you donate something to the fundraising auction again this year for this event that I've been a part of since 2017, in whether it was my own business or then for WOW." And when you get involved in something on a consistent basis, people see you as a partner, and they see that you're interested in helping the industry, especially in your local market, and just continuing to be at those events, continuing to support those things, be a part of fundraising auctions, things like that. And they will introduce you to other people. When you're at a fundraising auction or something that a particular brokerage is putting on, even if you're not the preferred vendor. So this brokerage, Steve, you might even know who I'm talking about. Every Cinco de Mayo, every year up here, we are not the preferred vendor for this brokerage, but we have been a yearly sponsor of it, and we have a good amount of their business, even though we're not their preferred vendor. But it's because we haven't taken that for granted, and despite not being the preferred vendor, we've continued to serve them well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important. It's all relationship based, and it's funny. Craig, you and I have had this conversation, and Carter recently. As we bring people, into a new market or a new company or whatever the case is, sometimes you hear sales and it's like, oh no, I'm not a salesperson. I don't like sales. Craig, I think you'll be the first one to say that.
Yeah,
is that
that's me.
You're not a salesperson, but you are. You just, you're not a stereotypical like used car salesman, and I think that's what people's mind jumps to. So for everybody that's building their business, just keep that in mind. You don't have to be your typical salesperson to where if you have a bad example in your head of that, just get that out of the way. Mm-hmm. Take care of your clients. Be consistent with everything. I mean, that's really the key to sales. And then it's just going to build that relationship. And exactly what you're saying, Craig, is then you have people, even if we're not the preferred partner, they're coming to us because they know the value. They know their agents are utilizing us to some level, and they know that we're trustworthy in the market, and they want us involved in different things as well.
I was training one of our new photographers earlier this week, and sharing with them my approach of, we're not just photographers, right? We're part of their marketing team. And so we want to build a good relationship with them. And I told this new photographer, I said, just realize this, in trying to develop the relationship and the business with them, you cannot sell a salesperson. So yes, what we're doing is sales, but you can't sell a salesperson. Now, you can consult with them and add value to their business and show what you can do to add value, but you're never going to, the typical, I don't want to say typical, because there are elements of the sales process that you still will utilize in developing that relationship, but it's from a place of really authentically caring about that person as a person, because that person is running a business to support themselves and their family. There's an underlying reason why they're in that business. And looking at it from the human point of view of how can I actually really benefit you and not just myself will go a long way in building an authentic relationship with people in the business world, right? In the market. So serving people well, being authentic about it, and showing up consistently, acting with integrity, that just, real estate is all about relationships and authentic relationships.
And we've talked about this before, but one of the best feelings that I think we still get, very frequently is when the phone rings and you pick it up and it's an agent saying, hey, I have this listing. These are the details. What do you think I should do?
Yeah.
And that just drives that point home is, you can be a salesperson and still act with integrity and build those relationships. And they can feel that too. Our agents reaching out to us and knowing that we know our side of the industry and how it benefits them. And we're ethical. We're not just looking to pile on as many services as we can to every order.
Right.
They know that they can reach out and they have an open dialogue to say, hey, I trust you. What do you think? And we throw out our suggestions, and Sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't, sometimes they tweak it a little bit, but just the fact that they open with that means, I mean, when's the last time that you went to a car dealership and asked the car dealer, it's like, I trust you, what car do you think I should get? You know, it's just not how it works in a lot of cases.
Right.
And there's some great car salesmen out there. I'm not trying to diminish that whole industry, but stereotypically, you know, when you are dealing with a salesperson, people have their guard up. They're a little bit more cautious, things like that. You can be a salesperson and eliminate that and know that you're there to serve them and help them. And then that's where everything starts coming back to you, you know, in the future, because you have those relationships.
Yeah. I think I've told this story before in the podcast, but for those that maybe started listening later, I had a client a couple of years ago that they were ordering drone on every single listing. And a lot of these listings were small city lots that didn't have much yard at all. A lot of times there was trees covering up the front of the house or much of the property. And that drone just wasn't adding any value to their marketing effort. And I got to the point, I probably should have said something earlier, but it finally clicked. And I approached the agent. I said, quick question. No offense. If there's a reason, great. But can I ask, is there any particular reason you're ordering drone on every single listing that we're doing? And the response was, I thought it would add marketing value. And, you know, it's one more thing I can do that the next agent isn't. And I said, okay. I said, totally get that. I understand that. I said, but honestly, the drone itself in the photos that I'm getting, or if there was video, isn't actually adding a whole lot of visual impact to what you're trying to do for your client. And I understand trying to build your brand. I'm all in support of that. But I think you could save some marketing dollars by eliminating that on certain properties that really don't need it. And let's find a creative way to use those dollars somehow else that will bring you some value. And from that point on, she's like, I could see the kind of the slack jawed, like, did you just like not sell yourself? But it built trust because, we're not just trying to increase the average order value just to increase the value. We really want them to benefit. So if you can prove that to one, you know, say you're just starting your business and you finally get one shoot, if you can somehow establish that integrity as being an honest, you know, hardworking vendor for that person and ultimately a marketing partner, they're going to sing your praises. That whole word of mouth advertising, I still think, is the best advertising you can get.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's as you build this engine, it starts to feed itself. And so as you can get more people, you're basically creating an army of salespeople out there for you, because they're out there talking to all their colleagues. And sometimes it's even, you know, other brokerages, you know, that they have colleagues in that they're talking to. And we've had a lot of doors open that way to where, you know, somebody was like, hey, I know you shoot for so-and-so over at, you know, Howard Hanna, you know, but what about us over here? It's like, yeah, we can help you too. And so it starts those conversations going, and believe it or not, I'm not saying it will bring it down to, you know, zero marketing dollars and zero tasks that you have to do for outreach and everything. But you do start to see that scale to where you have a lot more incoming that you can be responsive to versus having to spend more dollars, more time doing the outreach to bring clients to you. They're actually seeking you out instead.
Right. That's a good point too. As you do get established, you don't have to do as much of the grind, but going back to that consistency, you don't want to start taking business for granted either.
Correct. Yeah. That's a big thing with our business, you know, is that we take care of our clients, you know, and it doesn't matter if they've been with us a day or they've been with us for 10 years, you know, we're taking care of them. And that goes back to that consistency aspect is, you know, one, when you're trying to bring clients in, you have to be consistent. You know, it's going to be several phone calls, emails, meetings before you potentially earn their business and they try you out. And then that's your time to shine, to really wow them and win them over and bring them into your company. And then once they're part of your clients, you know, once they're part of your network there, then you still need to take care of them. So typically what we do with all of our clients is I always like to have the next action step with every client. So, you know, if there's a client that I need to call today, you know, I'll call them, I'll check in with them, see how everything's going. Maybe it's say they're a new client. We're going to check in, before their first appointment, just to make sure they have all the expectations and know what's coming. And then we're going to check in after the appointment and the media is delivered to make sure everything looks good. They're happy with how everything turned out. And then I continually follow up to where we're pushing out the next outreach. Maybe it's 2 weeks later, saying, hey, and usually it's checking the listing to see, is it pending? Did it go under contract? What's the status of it? So 2 to 4 weeks, we'll call them again and just kind of check in on that status. And if it's pending or, about to go under contract, then congratulate them, because that's a huge thing on their side is that they got that transaction done. So congratulate them. And then it doesn't end there. Typically I'm following up. It just, we use a little bit of judgment on our structure and everything, but there's always a next action step. It doesn't matter if that's 2 days away or if that's 6 months away. We have something scheduled for that client as the next follow-up to make sure that they don't fall off the radar, to make sure that they have everything that they need, that the relationship stays strong. And that consistency is really what keeps people with you after you've won them as a new client.
Yeah. Something as simple as wishing them a happy birthday. So something I like to do, I try to find my clients on Facebook. And you might not be super active on Facebook, but realtors are there. Most realtors are on Facebook and have a business page or something. But if you can friend them on Facebook, you're gonna get those notifications about their birthdays. So I had one this morning, Steve, that longtime client again, and it's the realtor's assistant. She is a licensed realtor as well, but she does a lot of the assistant type of work. It's her birthday. So instead of just leaving a happy birthday message on her Facebook page, I texted her and just, hey, happy birthday, Suzanne. Wishing you a great day. Pray you have a wonderful time with your family, and just shot that off. I've had their business forever. We have a great relationship, but I don't take that for granted. Some human sort of touch, just a, hey, thinking about you today. Have a great birthday. Here's the response I get. Thank you so much, Craig. Heart emoji. It's so thoughtful of you to reach out. Well, it's just something I do. Yes, it's thoughtful, but I care about this person because they're a great human being, and yes, I'm thankful for their business. But just little things like that. Send a thank you card now and then. Send them a Christmas card. It's just all about those little touches and staying consistent. But I think we've covered the consistency thing pretty well. So let me ask you this. Let's rewind a little bit. Going back to that person that is just trying to get their business off the ground and already in a big market. I don't know if there's a way for you to answer this or not, but how long would you say it takes to establish a base of clients in two different markets, in an unsaturated market, if there's such thing anymore, or versus a saturated market? Can you give a ballpark on how long that effort might take to get a small base of clients?
Yeah. It's a tough question. I don't know if I can give an exact ballpark, saying like in 3 months you should be here, in 6 months you should be here. I think what you should be looking at is, in a saturated market, obviously there's tons of business to go around, but there's also a ton of competitors. So you're competing against a lot of existing relationships and trying to get that business to come to you. In an unsaturated market, it's kind of the same. There's less business to go around. There's less competition. Probably your biggest competition that we've seen in smaller markets is just the old cell phone, to where they're taking their cell phone and going out and shooting their own photos. So then it's just two different areas, in an unsaturated market, you're trying to get them to invest dollars that they weren't previously investing and showing them the value of it. And then on the flip side, you're getting them to leave what they're comfortable with whoever they're currently working with and come to you. And so both of those situations, I think you kind of measure it the same way. I don't know if there's a time frame to say, like I said, certain benchmarks, but because that's going to vary from company to company quite a bit. Somebody that's, for example, if you're willing and able to pour 10 grand into a marketing campaign, you're going to be in a lot better, jump start compared to somebody that has $100 advertising budget. So there's just a difference there that it's hard to really differentiate. But I think if you're just going through, track the data, if you're starting today, once you get your first client, that's kind of your first benchmark, and you're like, okay, I have my client built in. If you're not doing this, one thing that we look at to kind of identify success in a market for us is looking at market share. So
Mhm.
get the data from the board, see what the entire number of listings hitting that market by month, by year, all that data, and then compare that to your shoots. So if you're doing, let's say you're doing 50 a month, and then there is a 500 listings hitting that market every month. So you have about 10% of the market share at that point. So I think that's your benchmark, regardless of time or anything else. Get, as soon as you can, possibly identify what your market share is, kind of flag that, and then your goal is to progress that. If you're at 1% today, how do you get to 2% in a month? How do you get to 6%, in 6 months, whatever the case is? So that, I think, is probably the bigger key versus the timeliness of it, is just consistent check-ins and looking at the results. And if you're not getting the results that you're wanting, then something's not working. And then that's where you have to kind of go back to the drawing board, look to see what efforts you're making with your outreach, marketing, whatever the case is. And if something's not progressing, then there's a broken link in that chain, and go back and address that. Do your next best draft. Get a new approach out there, and then start the process again.
Yeah, yeah. The listener that was talking with me, they said, I'm just trying to get my name out there and getting folks to call me back. It's just been crickets. And my personality is such that I like a lot of face-to-face, one-on-one type of things and building relationship. I think what I would do, but this is my personality versus, say, Joy, who does a lot of events and gets in front of a lot of people at once. Say you have even just one client. The word of mouth advertising, like I said before, I'm still convinced is the most powerful form of advertising, because it lends credibility. So what I would do is, say you only have 5 clients. They like you. Let's assume that they like you. They like the work that you're doing. You're not doing a ton for them, but they're using you and they like you. Ask them. Now, I know this is going to be hard during busy season because everybody is busy. Ask if you can take them out to coffee or lunch or breakfast or something to get some one-on-one time. Check in with them, see how their business is doing. What are your goals? Really add value, consult with them, brainstorm some ideas with them. And before you leave, ask if there's anybody in their office, their brokerage, that they would be willing to refer you to. Offer them some sort of credit or thank you for the referral if that person ends up booking with you. It starts slow. It's a grind. But if you can do that face-to-face ask and you've established a relationship with them, it will snowball.
Yeah.
It grows exponentially. But I think the important part, I all credit to Eli Jones with the Instagram method that has worked for a ton of people. But I think there's something to be said for that face-to-face relationship building and asking for the sale or asking for the referral. Because again, we're going back to the fact that real estate is a relationship-based business, and the realtors, they're spending face-to-face time with their clients. I really believe you've got to do the same.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to do that and forego only really doing digital advertising, get in front of people and build a rapport and ask for the referrals, and those things will snowball.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And kind of going back, with a couple of points that you just made is the face-to-face interaction, Instagram method, regardless of what you're doing. There's a million different things you can do. Like, just to kind of give you an example, we do a lot of cold outreach to clients to where if we haven't worked with them before, we're just picking up the phone and calling them, and saying, introducing us, who we are. Typically we're just asking, do you mind me asking who you currently work with? And kind of going from there, you'll be amazed at how many doors that opens up by just asking that simple question and kind of feeding off of that. You can go out in person and greet people, invite them to coffee, like Craig said, or, if you can't pin them down, maybe just make pop-ins to the office, see if they're there, sensitive of their time, don't expect an hour meeting when you stop into an office. Just kind of, it's more of a, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do. And then you have the grounds to kind of follow up after that. But regardless of whatever method that you're doing, just keep looking at it and seeing how can you improve it. It's just amazing the little things that you can adjust. Had an example come up to me yesterday from one of our salespeople, and they were doing cold outreach to clients, and at their follow up, they would ask, do you mind if I send you some information, just in case anything changes in the future? And they were getting a few no's on that. And so just talking through it, I was like, don't ask, just you had a good conversation with them and just say, hey, just so you know, I'm going to send you my information just in case anything changes. I've never had somebody say, no, don't do that. They might delete the email, but at least you have the opportunity to land in their inbox. And we've seen firsthand where we get calls from emails we sent a year ago, to where, again, top of mind, something changed, and now they need somebody to fill this need, and they're like, yeah, Craig did reach out a while back, and they look in their email and respond to that old contact. So just regardless of what you do, just monitor it and kind of just analyze it, see what's happening and see what tweaks you can do, because the methods are all successful. It's just a matter of, what matches best to your personality, what tweaks can you make to further, get more success from those outreach, activities and whatnot. And it works really well. You can make some small changes and have some big results over time.
Yeah. Ultimately, just don't give up.
Yeah.
We know it can be a grind, especially now that we're, quite a few years into real estate media really becoming a thing, a real niche market that a lot of people are wanting to get into. We know it can be challenging, but don't give up. If you really have a passion for it and enjoy the work, enjoy the relationship building, I think you're going to find a lot of fulfillment. You just got to give it the time and the time to develop the relationships. I know we're beating a dead horse. Todd and I have talked about relationships for a couple of years now, but that's what it ultimately boils down to. And, I would even say, even on cold calls, if you've got somebody else, say you've got one client in a certain brokerage, check with that client, ask if they mind if you use their name as a referral yourself when you're making the cold call to somebody. Call into that person, say, hey, I know we've never met. Introduce yourself. I'm currently providing the real estate visual marketing for your colleague so-and-so in your brokerage. And they said it would be okay to mention their name, and just go from there. Being able to establish some credibility with people that you're already shooting for, it doesn't hurt. I'll put it that way. And the other thing that popped into my mind, Steve, is you were mentioning things, especially with the, we call them objections, in sales development, overcoming objections. And the most common one probably is, well, I already have a photographer. Don't assume, I would say, don't assume that they're entirely happy with that photographer. Because sometimes there might be something going on that they've worked with them forever, but they're not quite happy with something. And that's your opportunity to say, hey, if there's ever a time you need a backup or they're not available, I'm here for you. I just thought I'd put myself out there and say hello.
Yeah. Asking those questions and getting to the bottom of what the actual issue is or whatever the actual objection is on that side of things is critical. So as you're talking to people, if they say they're currently working with somebody, Craig, like you said, they may be working with somebody. It doesn't mean they're happy. It doesn't mean that they're everything's going smoothly on that side. So you can ask those questions. You can ask, do you mind me asking how's everything going? And that's not, a crazy question to ask. And a lot of times by just asking that question, they'll start kind of spieling out there. Sometimes you'll hear, it's like, hey, yeah, it's actually my brother-in-law that's doing it for me, so just kind of take that into consideration. You want to respond based on what they said, not have your responses ready to go. So listen and then respond and not just respond to respond. Right. And so a lot of times, if it is that, it's like, I've ran into that several times where it's like, well, my daughter's doing my photography, because she's going to school for it or something along those lines. You can still ask those follow-up questions and just say, hey, do you is she able to do all the different services for you, like aerial and things along those lines? Because a lot of times they might be a photographer, but they don't have the ability to do other things. And you can simply say, I get it, that you have the photography covered. I'd love to be another, arrow in your quiver for whatever you need on that side. So we can
There
be
you go.
available for drone or whatever the case would be. And then even just asking how it's going for, standards, like, yeah, I'm using XYZ company. Ask how it's going. And, if they're completely happy, one thing I think that we've learned is if they're like, yeah, I'm using this company and everything's great, I love them, I've been using them for years, you're not typically going to spend a 10-minute conversation and convince them, and you don't want to convince them that they're actually wrong on what their thought process
Right.
is.
Right.
So, spend your time wisely on that. Don't ruin a potential future relationship because you're wanting to close a sale today. Just have that conversation and say, oh no, I completely get it. It sounds like you got everything kind of working well for you. So I don't want to step on any toes. I'd love to, I'm going to send you my info in case anything ever changes in the future. And I'll follow up is it okay if I follow up in 6 months and just kind of check in? And again, don't expect to get instant gratification from that call, but I can tell you, over time they do convert. Things change. That person moves out of the area. That person stopped doing their business or whatever the case is. They're working full-time elsewhere, and I can't tell you how many times I've called to follow up, and it's like, actually, it's funny you called because I'm actually looking for somebody now. So that top of mind is what will get you there, and just building the relationship is kind of the step stool to get to that point.
One thing I say, Todd, I'm used to talking to Todd. One thing I say, Steve, when I do get that response of, hey, I've got a photographer, I've been working with them forever, and they're happy. I respect loyalty. I want my clients to be loyal to me, assuming that I'm providing them good service. So I respect that in a competitor that is providing good service for their client. And I let that person that I'm talking to know, hey, I respect that. I'm not going to push hard on that. If they're ever not available and you need to shoot by a certain date, hey, we'd love to be a secondary for you.
Yeah.
And it just cover for your current photographer. And then that builds respect in them because you're not impinging on the relationship that they value already. So
yeah, I mean, think of it from the other perspective. If you were an agent and you got a call, somebody trying to sell you on something, and you just told them how much you really like the person or the company that you're working with now, and then their next response is, well, let me tell you why they're not good and I am. Like that's something that you're just never going to really recover from, because that first impression in their mind's going to be like, wow, he was really pushy, or like, I just told him that I'm happy, and now he
didn't listen to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is critical on that side of things. And that is something that I think a lot of, when you're thinking of the traditional like salesperson, that's where some of that falls off on success, because they're not listening. They're just ready to respond with whatever they want to say next, not reacting to what they say.
I've got to tell you this story, and I wish I would have been in our sales meeting Monday morning, because this was a perfect example of what you're just talking about. And then if you've got anything to close with, we'll wrap things up here. But I have to share this story, Steve. So I went to the car wash. I think it was last week. And there's this one car wash in town that it's easy to get in and out of, and it is popular. But I noticed they started doing something that royally irritated me. And it's happened, I think, twice. And this last week was the third time that since I started noticing this, that I pulled up and I'm like, God, please don't let this happen. What they started doing was they have automated kiosks, 2 different lanes, one for members, one for single car washes, that feed into going into the car wash. You select which wash you want. It's all self-serve. It's really nice. It's easy. It's low pressure. But obviously, they're trying to push these monthly memberships with their advertising and their signage. It's all very clear. It's very well, spelled out. It's not hard to understand. What they started doing a couple of months ago was sending one of their employees out to stand at the automated kiosk as you pull up and push the buttons for you and try and talk to you into doing the monthly membership. Now, I hate hard sales and pushy sales, and it irritated me. So this last week when I pulled up, there was nobody out there, or somebody had been out there, but they walked back in. I thought, oh, awesome. I'm going to be able to get through and squeeze through without them bugging me to try and push their monthly program again. Doesn't it happen that they walk back out as I'm then pulling up? I'm like, oh, I'm going to tell them how I feel about this, because I'm really kind of insulted that everything is laid out. I understand the monthly program. It's all there in front of me. You have an automated system for me to serve myself. Very easy to hit my button, put my credit card in, and just go. Right? I don't want a sales presentation as I'm going into a car wash. So this guy comes out and he starts to talk. I'm like, let me just say something. I said, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be, rude or anything like that. I said, but I'm in sales myself, and I'm just going to share for some feedback for you, for your leadership, your management. I find it really off-putting for you guys to come out here and push the buttons for me when it's an automated system that's very easy to operate, and try and talk me into a monthly program. It's a hard sales tactic. It's a very pushy sales tactic, and it's really off-putting to the point where I'm probably not going to come back to this car wash. And of course he kind of froze, and I'm like, I'm not trying to be mean to you. Because I understand he's probably doing this because his boss told him this is what the program is now, what they have to do, because they're trying to get sales goals, right? I get this. And so Steve, no joke, his response was, well, we understand, but we're just trying to really push the monthly program and let people know how they can save money. But he literally used the words, push this program.
Oh, man. Yeah, sometimes.
My jaw dropped. I'm like, did you just hear what you said and what I just said? And he kind of looks at me blankly again. I'm like, I don't want you pushing a program on me. I go to the car wash maybe once every 6 weeks. That program is not going to save me any money. He wasn't actively listening.
I had a similar experience I can throw out real quick recently, just as an example, is we have, I mow our own lawn. We don't have a huge lawn, but we do have a company that comes out and treats it, like, I think twice a year, so nothing crazy. So they contacted me. We've been using them for years, just for the treatment on that side of things. They contacted me, and they're trying to get more business for the actual mowing and landscaping and everything else. And so I told them I mow my own lawn. And I mean, just verbatim, I can tell they're reading from a script. And so after I say I mow my own lawn, they're telling me how they can save me money compared to who I'm currently paying to have do it. And so again, just going back to, you're not listening at all. You're just responding just to respond. And honestly, it got to the point, I told them no 3 times, and they're still telling me how, they can save me money or whatever the case is, to the point where I canceled my other service with them. It's just like, I'm not, it's not something that I want to go through and everything else. So, I mean, we all have examples like that. And so just think of that mindset as you're talking to people, is if roles were reversed, how would you feel about how you're taking this conversation?
Right.
And if you wouldn't feel good about it, then you're probably doing something wrong. And I would adjust, that approach. But, just put yourself in the other person's shoes. And I think that goes a long way. The mentality behind the sales side of things.
For sure. Jeez. Yeah. That ended up costing them money.
Yeah, it's not a ton of money on their side, but it's the opposite of what they were looking for, and so those little things can really and I'm going to be out in the community. If somebody says, "Hey, do you know somebody that can do this?" My answer is probably going to be like, "Well, I tell you who not to use." So it actually could work against you even beyond that one customer. So just be cautious of those conversations.
Yeah. Absolutely. Steve, thank you so much for taking time this week to join us. Just always enjoy having you on and sharing your knowledge with those that are watching and listening and trying to develop their business development as well. So thank you.
Yes. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy kind of talking through the sales and marketing side. So hopefully that helps everybody. And if there's any follow-up questions, I'd love to know afterwards as well.
Yeah. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you?
Probably the easiest way to reach me is just by email. So it's just steve@wildvideotours.com. And I'd be glad to help out where I can.
Yeah, feel free. Or if you want, because we always repeat this email, just email hello@spiro.media and just say, hey, I'd love to get in contact with Steve, and we can put you in contact with Steve as well. So,
Yep,
all right. Well, Steve, thank you. Appreciate it. And,
yes, thank you.
Yeah, enjoy your weekend.
Yes, thank you too.
Yeah. For those of you watching and listening, again, thank you for making the time. If you found value in this, obviously we always appreciate a like, on the YouTube channel. Feel free to leave any comments, things that you've learned that might help somebody else in a different market. We love the community building and just sharing of ideas and things like that. But yeah, we appreciate you guys. Hopefully you found value in that. As if you're struggling a little bit with getting your business development effort going, lots of creative ideas out there. But ultimately it all boils down to consistency and relationship. So, all right, you guys have a great week. Make sure you take some time, especially as we head into the busy season here, to, just be thankful for the blessings in your life, and make sure you take a breath as well. Have a great week.
Thank you for joining us for the Spiro Podcast, Managing Your Real Estate Photography and Videography Business. This is a production of Spiro and Wow Video Tours. You can find out more about Spiro's real estate media business management software at our website, spiro.media.